All right, guys, I got another great guest, Jason Sarney, and fellow New Yorker. We had a real good time. Viewers seemed to really enjoy his time with me. He provided a lot of great information pre-draft. So I begged him. I got on my knees. I offered him $100, and I said, no, okay, I said, come on, I need to hear your post-draft eval. I'm usually secure in what I see, and I'm find myself being gripped by hope. And I don't want to fall into the hopium part. So I'm trying to grab as much intel from clearer heads than me so I can make sure I'm on target when I come back from my vacation. And I know Jason Sarney is going to provide that. So guys, we're going to go through a whole list of Dolphin stuff and we'll pick his brain and see what he thinks. So Jason, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it, brother.
Oh, Curtis, anytime. It was a pleasure jumping on the last time we met. Thank you for everyone tuning in and who did tune in. And anytime I could talk Dolphins with a Northeastern, specifically New Yorker. Forget the R's.
We don't use those. How you been doing with Jonah Vahinaya?
Hey, I'm happy with the pick. You know, when you go up and you trade for a guy and you have that conviction and get him, at 38, I understand the cost that it took, but you are aiming now to be more forceful inside of that offensive line. And that is something that they absolutely needed.
Hallelujah.
It's a perfect pick in that second round, regardless of the cost. People could say, oh, they gave up too much. It actually was rather comparable with both the models out there, those trade value charts. Mm-hmm. So, hey, good deal and great player with potential. And it piggybacks off that first round pick of the defensive side of the trench in Kenneth Grant. So they sent a message, did Chris Greer, saying we are getting stronger on both aspects of the inside of the ball.
I feel like I took my crazy pills. I thought I was here in the Twilight Zone, all that draft, man. What do you think? You think this is a one-off? You think he's got on the right track finally?
The funny thing is about that is I really was like, to say on the fence, I think I was almost over the fence of giving up on him. But this draft, I think he set a little bit of a better foundation with that potential of, enforcing that interior on both sides, specifically the defensive side. We went into this draft where Zach Sealer was looking around for a teammate. He didn't have anybody. And now all of a sudden we're talking about a rookie in Kenneth Grant who was like a faster, more athletic version of Tim Bowens when you look at him. And then you got Jordan Phillips, a 5th rounder, and you got Zeke Bagers, who is a 7th rounder, who is a great name, 6'6", basketball background type of a guy.
Well, I didn't know that.
Quick feet, and he's got that like outside 3-tech ability almost, not outside, you know what I mean? But I think he could be a factor. So they did a really good job of getting stronger mentally, and they added literally a ton of weight to this team.
No joke. That was the whole thing for me. I just didn't understand the build for so long. I thought it was kind of crazy. Do you think it was Greer or do you think it was the forces behind him? What do you think? Do you think it was his brainchild or maybe Allen and the new guy, I can't remember his name right now, who came in saying, hey, look, we got to change this stuff up. Or did he just come to
Champ Kelly,
Yeah, Champ Kelly.
I think, it's funny because this didn't, look like a typical Chris Greer draft. Oh, there's the cornerback in the first round. He did things that I think has been in his DNA. First round, he went with trench player. He's done that before at 13.
Yeah,
Christian Wilkins. Exactly. He's done second round offensive lineman. He's missed in a trade up. But
Jonah, he hit on Hunt.
Absolutely. No, but Jonah is not Liam. Okay. Now I know the last time they traded up in the second round. Please don't think about that.
No.
But what he did in the value was vintage Greer. In trading out and getting a pick for 2026, put a pin on that because that can go with Ramsey for an increase of that pick. Watch him flip Ramsey in a 3rd to move into a 2nd, get a 5th round pick as well, something like that. So you move out of the 3rd and 4th rounds, you pile up day 3 picks, and I'll tell you, 2 of my favorite picks in this draft are 5th round guys who went to the same school, and we'll talk about the players, I'm sure, and Jordan Phillips on the defensive line, and Dante Trader Jr., a versatile safety who could – this guy can be good, folks.
Really?
Yep. I love this type of player. Cerebral, brilliant kid, lacrosse player. And so I don't want people to look at like, oh, he ran a 4.58. Oh, his athletic metric scores were low. Lacrosse player for Maryland his sophomore year in 2023. That's a powerhouse. That's just not a good school. That is a lacrosse powerhouse. The ability to have that wherewithal to just kind of play that level of sport and then focus on football. Watch him be like a chess piece kind of a player for Anthony Weaver. Think a light potential in the max of Kyle Hamilton. That's what you can maybe get with him and utilize him as deep safety up in the box, you know, and he's going to be good. I have high hopes for Dante Trader Jr.
Yeah, I Marshall and Trader, I just wasn't sure about it. They seemed like stretches, but I'm not a really draft guy. So I'm enjoying this little take on it because really, if you think about it, because it looks like we're not playing a lot of man, we're playing zones. And if you're playing zones for the most part, and you got a cerebral guy, that's the huge piece of the puzzle. You know, but he's not that big though, is he? Isn't he? How tall is he? And what's his weight? 5'11"?
I don't think he goes off the boards with height or weight. He's an average size guy, but you know,
he's got the brain.
He's got the brain. He knows where to be on the field. He's got that multiple position ability, and he can hit. He can tackle, and I think, I mean, look, he can hit and wrap up. You know, as a lacrosse player, you don't necessarily tackle. You hit. Yeah. You know, so this guy could do a little bit of both. He's going to be a fun. You know, think almost like a Brandon Jones type of a player, but more hybrid linebacker.
Yeah, he looks like Brandon was a little stiff. Brandon was a little stiff. He's a little bit of just a straight line guy. What about Marshall, though? What do you think about Marshall?
Marshall has like good coverage ability. He's actually really good in press. He's like long, but he needs to work on his actual ball hawking. You know, he's not a turnover creator, but he's aggressive of knocking third and long. He knocks the ball out of the hands. Good for me. You know, because you're going to get a punt on a long pass anyway. It's kind of what's the plus minus there. But he's good in coverage and can play physical and has good size. And the Dolphins need people in camp on the boundary to compete with a very thin room right now.
Well, if you look at Benford from the Bills, he was the same way. He's not that fast, physical, able to jam guys and drop into his coverage. I wish we would do more than that. I'm surprised I don't see that much. I'll see, tight ends come off the line of scrimmage and they'll go past like two linebackers and nobody even like jabs him. Nobody even like throws them off their routes. If this guy can jam some people and get some physical, I think that goes a long way. I just don't understand why I don't see more of that. It doesn't make any sense, especially if you're in man. I get in man because you're going to get burnt if you screw it up. But if you're in zone, man, get in a guy, jam him, throw him off that route, and then drop. It can't hurt, It really can't. So I'm hoping for that. So I'm going to go back. I kind of went out of sync over here. For me, Grant, I think Grant, you could see he's a 3 technique. I kind of saw him as a 0 and 1 at first, and then I saw the 22 bench rep, but that's not what he is. He's going to be the guy playing in that 3 technique, doing the swim move, shooting the gap, big guy. You can't really, once he gets in that gap and he's at your side, you're not going to put one arm to hold him off. He's going to get the penetration. I do think if he could develop more strength, he could be everything. But, if you saw him, he's got no chest, man. He's going to have to do a little bit of working on the chest, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think that's the easiest thing, building up your strength, your chest, getting some lifts going. It's an NFL strength program. And if he could get, I'm not saying that it's all there, like, the bench means this, but if he can go from 22 to like 28, but like overall strength, and he can add stoutness where you can put him at the 0, say, or the 1 on a pass down or a second down and short. This guy will be unbelievable. He's a good kid. He's got huge arms. He's got everything. I think it's a really good pick. I don't know how people could knock it. I know the Bills wanted him, and I think we screwed the Bills because we set that early dominoes, and they kind of were scrambling. I'm really not big on their 2 picks at D tackle. I think they reached. I think we hurt them a little bit with that pick as well as getting a good player.
If my memory serves correct, there were a number of defensive tackles taken like kind of after in those next 7 or 8 picks. So did we start the run? Sure. And then when you look at the kind of guy that he is playing next to Zach Sealer, it's going to maximize Sealer, who is the only lineman interior wise to have 10 sacks in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So, If you focus on Kenneth Grant, which he can do, and free up Sealer, fantastic. If they're going to focus on Sealer, oh, wow, this guy's got 20 sacks, let's focus on Sealer. You give Grant the ability to maybe become more of a pass rusher, because that's what he's got to kind of work on too, is get that pass rushing ability up, some moves up. But he is going to do damage and helping run people. And I think that they can sprinkle them all over the place in that rotation that Anthony Weaver likes to do. But I agree with you. You know, the nose, I think, is Benito Jones's job to kind of lose initially.
And Phillips.
And Phillips, exactly. But Phillips has that tiny versatility as well. But to think that the top three could be Sealer, Grant, Jones, and then have that rotation, you know, Biggers comes on in, Phillips, they just signed Matthew Butler. Yep. So there's a lot that they can do on that interior front. I really enjoy that pick of Grant and the other two.
Yep. And okay, Phillips, I was a big fan of Phillips. I couldn't believe strength. Now, I kind of went off a little bit. I thought it was 365 strict press, but he was doing like a bounce press, but he did 365 twice, which probably means he could probably do like 320, 330 strict press. That is unbelievable strength. I think the world record is 476. This kid's only 20 years old, so this kid has elite strength. You could see he's a hard worker. His neck, and he's got that bowling pin. You know, it's like he is got such a low center of gravity. I'm really excited about him. I'm really a big fan of him, and he's got a wrestling background. So I think, to your point, we really did solidify in theory this defensive line, and that's where it all starts, in those trenches. So I'm really, really happy about that. Ewers, I mean, he's a 3rd round pick. If you get a backup out of it, it's awesome. I think you should be picking a quarterback every year. So I'm happy. I'm fine with that. What about you?
Yeah, day 3, 7th rounder. I mean, I feel like I would have loved, in all honesty, I would have loved earlier in going with a Kyle McCord. That was kind of the guy that I was really hoping to get. Ends up an Eagle, of course. Of course. They did so well. But they did so well. But it hurts.
Every year he's gotten better too. Like he was pretty good in like the 2000s, but the last 4 or 5 drafts, he's just wrecked it.
He's turned into an art form. He really has. But anywho, Ewers to me here's the best case this year for Ewers. I think it would be beneficial if he pushes Zach Wilson for the backup job. He's not here to take over for Tua in 2000. It's never
going to happen. I know. It's such craziness.
You know, but we signed Zach Wilson to be your backup. Now, last year they had Skylar Thompson as the backup. They obviously needed to take care of another quarterback and Snoop Huntley and bring him in. They went with 2 on the initial 53. With Ewers, he might just have a little bit too much talent and potential to be waived and not picked up on the business end of things. Mm-hmm. So they should keep 3 quarterbacks and have Ewers push himself and Wilson to get that number 2 job. And I think if that's a conversation, if we're even having that conversation, then it's an absolute win, because next year you cut bait with Zach Wilson. And in a perfect world, 2 is the quarterback, and you got a young kid developing who could be a backup and potential, all right, he plays 3 games, he goes 2-1. That's what I've been saying. If you have a young quarterback on this team, they got to go 1 game above 500. If it's 1 game, win it. If it's 2 games, go 500. Do not go below 500 if it's more than 2 games.
Yeah. I mean, to me, you can't keep Wilson no matter what, because if he has a good year, say Tua gets hurt and he comes in and has an outlandish season, he's going to command so much money. How are you going to keep him? It doesn't, says no way. I mean, the only thing you could get a compensatory pick, or maybe you could lock him down somehow. But I doubt that would happen. So to me, it's got to be, you've got to have Tua stay healthy. That'd be the most important thing. And if he can't, then you just got to hope Ewers is showing something. And it's a roll of the dice. You should be taking these guys every year. At a certain, we don't have enough talent to take the guys in the mid rounds. McCord out from 3 yards per carry. Love McCord. I kind of liked him too. I saw him with Gruden. I was pretty impressed. But I wouldn't want to have lost Phillips, or now you're talking about Trader, how good he is. I think that taking the quarterback in the back end, because we are so depleted, I think it kind of made sense. But I think they should draft a quarterback next year.
Next year is going to be a deep quarterback draft. And I kind of made my peace when they made that trade, went out. When they took themselves out of the 4th round, after having already taken themselves out of the 3rd round, I was saying to myself, we're not going quarterback until maybe, late day 3, and that's what happened with 7th round. And I kind of kissed the McCord dream goodbye, or anybody, But there's a lot of players in the 3rd and 4th round that you're saying goodbye to because you have such conviction in Jonah Savaiinaea. I hope I said that right.
I don't know.
Savaiinaea. I don't know.
Savaiinaea.
Anyway, we'll all get there. We'll all get there.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Listen, you don't want to say his name throughout a game unless it's on an absolute massive pancake.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think. But if you're not hearing the name, not necessarily a bad thing. But anyway, no, I just I think that Ewers will be hopefully a competitor to get a backup job on this team should they need one on the field this year.
And that's all you can really hope for. Now, back to our guy, Jonah. I'm not going to try to say his name. I jinx myself. So if you heard his interview in the minicamp, he said he was not comfortable pushing off his right foot in college. He says, but now that's what he's doing. He's working on getting comfortable with that, and that's his goal. So if that's the case, that means either A, they're cross-training him for left guard, which I don't think would be wise because you want to get a guy you spent this much on and not do a Jackson and an Eichenberg and move them all over the place.
Right.
So it would seem like they're setting him up for left guard. Now, that could also mean maybe Daniels is not ready. And if Daniels isn't ready, that means Eichenberg is more comfortable at right guard. So, but one way or the other, either they're cross-training him for left guard or they're setting him up next to Paul. So what do you think about that, if that's the case? I mean, it seems like that's what it would seem like, right?
It definitely seems that way. I mean, if I had my druthers, what am I? But if James Daniels is perfectly healthy, why not take the veteran, put him next to Patrick Paul to have that kind of, tutelage and almost, anchor on the left side. And then that sets up potentially, in a nice way, your bookend should be hopefully all right with Jackson on the right. And then you got Brewer in the middle and then the rookie on the right side protecting Tua on the blind side almost. Because remember, there's that familiarity. They just know of each other from being from the same general area. I think they put the same high school. I don't know if they played together or whatnot, some connection. But I would love to see him on the right side next to Austin Jackson and a healthy, ready James Daniels to kind of just soften the blow of having what was a very rough spot last year to fill left guard, and the guy who's taking over for Teron Armstead. So if you have the guy taking over for Teron Armstead, a second-year unproven in Paul, and a rookie, to me, that screams, I'm a little worried. I'm intrigued, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable just spitballing here. Throwing him on the right side, help it be to his blind side, and get a veteran next to a second-year project is a little tough to call, Paul, but let's face it, they drafted the second round last year with Teron Armstead, so I guess there's a developmental project tag to him.
Yeah, I for me, I did like a podcast on it, and I said the most, rational for the total health of the team would be Paul, Daniels, Brewer, Jonah Savaiinaea, and then Jackson. Just for the things you said, you would break up the younger guys and put them next to vets. But the one downside is that Daniels is coming off the Achilles. He's not really good at moving guys. He's like, okay. He's like a 7.5. And I don't, if you're coming off Achilles, that drive is going to be limited. You're not going to be 100%. I think he was injured week 4, probably had the surgery by week 5 or 6. So if he's not going to be at a year of that surgery date until probably anywhere between week 4 to 6 of the season. And for me, this team's got to drive the football inside on the inside run game. And if you put Daniels on the right side next to Brewer and Jackson can't run block inside. And so you'd have your movement side, you'd have your finesse side. Daniels wouldn't be counted on so much to drive that football. But if you put Savaiinaea on the left side with Paul and then like a Pharaoh Brown, if Savaiinaea is able to drive guys out and he's the best of the 3, including Eichenberg, at least you'd have a pocket to run that football inside. And you could not pound it behind Daniels because really Paul's your best run blocker. He's the guy who's going to move guys. And in Daniels, let's say Daniels comes in late, then you'd have to put Eichenberg there, and that's Eichenstein over there. It would be very scary. So I think maybe that's their plan. I think Daniels is going to be a little slow to recover, whether it means he misses games or he's just not going to be 100%. I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to it. I don't think we'll know. But Daniels, to me, the biggest part about him is he's going to have to drive guys out. He's going to have to dig guys out. You know, he's moving from that tackle spot to the guard spot. He's going to be dealing with shorter guys, more powerful guys. And that was the only knock on him, was he wasn't as powerful as he looked. He wasn't able to sometimes handle the bull rush and the pass rush, and he wasn't able to dig guys out. So to me, if he can just be a 6.5 in his inside run blocking, his handling power, I think that would be maybe the best. It's still going to be a little scary because Paul's got a lot to grow on. There's still a lot of growth that needs to happen. But he dropped 10 pounds and we don't know. So I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. But, you know, usual Dolphins take a guy where he's comfortable and they got to move him to where he's not. So I don't know. We'll see.
That is absolutely prototypical Dolphins management. But sometimes it could work. Other times it could be a little bit of a cluster. But I do trust Coach Butch Barry on the offensive line to find that right combination. But we're looking at a set 5, which I think is huge. I think
that's nice.
We can safely say that there is a starting 5
at some point if Daniels is ready for week 1.
Correct. I'm hoping, but you know, the depth of this offensive line, that's another story.
Is there any depth?
I mean, very, very, very light. They signed Larry Borum. You know, there are a couple of free agents in Addison West and Josh Preby from Michigan, who could be a guard potential to be like a swing guard, but Borum maybe is the swing guard because you lose Kendall Land, you lose Lester Cotton, you lose Robert Jones, you lose Isaiah Wynn. And I'm not saying these guys are great, but they are your depth.
Yeah.
So do you keep a Ryan Hayes? You know, Ryan Hayes from
I'm not big on Borum, man. Maybe a guard, but definitely not tackle.
I mean,
we throw so fast, I guess it doesn't matter. If Jackson can be passable, I guess anybody can really.
I mean, let's see what happens with free agency. You know, the second wave, the next wave of free agency, because there's going to be a scrap heap. There already is 2 or 3 guys who you might want. But after the cuts, you never know. I think there's a safe 8 or 9 on this offensive line right now for the 53, and they took 10 last year. So
yeah, I didn't need them. With us, we always get the injuries.
Oh, yeah.
So I think we kind of understand the offense. I like Westbrook. Hill, is he going to melt down or he's not going to melt down? I don't know. But the offense is pretty set. I think McDaniel's got enough tools to get things done. Do you think he's going to for me, you've got to have some kind of audible system. You've got to be able in year 4, you've got to be able to get your plays in on time. So I think he's got enough tools now, unless you get some crazy rash of injuries or something. But do you think he's going to be able to take that step forward?
Thinking and hoping are different words and ideologies. So I'm going to say I hope. Am I putting the mortgage on it? Look, I would love to. I honestly like the guy. I want the coach to learn from these mistakes, the audibles, the getting to the line quicker, the not using challenge flags when you shouldn't, timeout usage. You know, a couple of really dumb timeout mistakes. You have them, you got to use them. That's number 1. Use them the right time. Use them the right time. Don't call a timeout in the third quarter with 8 minutes left, setting yourself up for when you're down 4 to have only 2 timeouts and the math doesn't work to get, a couple of series in. So he's got to learn a couple of things. And even if he has to delegate better, silly penalties, not being able to change things up has hurt this team. So I agree with you fully. I hope he corrects and checks that box off.
I think, I gave him I thought year 1, you had to give him a huge amount of mulligans because of where he came from. Year 2, I said a solid amount of mulligans. Last year, I said a minor amount of mulligans. But this year, there should be no mulligans. It's time for him to. He got the guy, the offensive coordinator from the Texans in here to help him out. He's got Smith. He's got the Seattle. What's his name? I always forget his name. The Seattle offensive coordinator, who's to his quarterback coach.
Everett.
No, the yellow guy. I can't remember his name. So my name memory, but he was the offensive coordinator during the Super Bowls of Seattle, and I can't remember.
Bevel.
Bevel. Yeah. So you got Bevel, you got Smith, and you got the guy from the Texans. There should be no problems. I don't understand how you can't audible. I mean, like, not ever. This whole cheat motion thing is dead. So he's got to come in with kind of like a new way of doing things. Not totally, but he's got to implement some stuff, and he's got to be on point, because what you got going with this team this year, I think, is going to be more competitive. The margin for victory is going to be small. The margin for errors are going to be smaller. And any mistakes he makes, like he's made for the past couple of years, could cost us games. And so I think he should get the full spotlight this season. I'm not saying fire him if he doesn't do it, but I think it's his time to prove whether he's got the sauce or not. And, you can't have guys doing their own thing. 3 years. Greer kind of threw him under the bus, saying when he came here, he had a way of doing things. Now he's close to doing the way we do things. Greer always loves to throw people under the bus. But so this is his year. He's got all the tools. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with AceBread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.